My name is Coach Bibi. Let's see here. Okay. All right. And so over the next few minutes, like I said, we will be talking about mindset matters. So why our mindsets matter, and specifically talking about, the growth mindset. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that concept or that theory, but we'll just touch lightly on that and kind of just explore, what our thoughts and, thought patterns are, and, uh, what we what really is our behavior when it comes to our thinking, and our thought patterns. Okay. All right, so just a little bit about me. I'm a DPP coach out here in the Woodlands, Texas. I'm a pharmacist, so that's my background for the past 10 years. I've been a pharmacist here in Texas. So while we're walking through this, the information that's going to be presented today, I want you to have these thoughts, in mind. But for this first part, I want you to think, what are your predominant thought patterns? Okay. Are they healthy or unhealthy? Are they moving you closer to achieving your goals, or are they hindering you? So those are thoughts I want you to or questions I want you to try to answer as we discuss and go through things. Okay. All right. So there's so many different thought patterns, but I just picked out a few that I thought were probably most common with a lot of us. And you probably might fall into many of these, I guess, categories with the thought patterns. But these are specifically unhealthy thought patterns that we entertain from time to time, depending on the situation. It could vary. And you might not identify with any of them, and that's fine too. So I just want you to think about them as I kind of go through what each one of them represents. Okay, let's see here. Move this away. All right. Okay, so the first one here is the all or nothing thinking. And this is really like the black or white thinking pattern. And it is grounded in extremes. Okay, so it's for instance, one mistake that you make, say on a diet, or you forget, or not forget, but you don't work out all week or something, or don't exercise all week. And so because of that, you completely abandon what your goals are and what you set out to do. So that would be, the all or nothing thinking. Okay. And because the mindset here says that because I fall short of perfection, it means that I'm a complete failure, right? So that's an unhealthy thought pattern. The next one there is overgeneralization. And then what that is when one unwanted event or experience leads you to make a general conclusion that nothing ever goes right. So one low grade in school, or rejection from someone you love or that you're interested in, or one criticism at work is generalized into a feeling of defeat and failure, right? So that's another unhealthy thought pattern. All right, and then mental filters. So everything goes right, but just one little detail was off. And then rather than focusing on the good thing, or the good things that happened, you focus on, the one negative detail. And if you filter out all the positives, you tend to miss out on all the great things that life, can offer, right? Not focusing on anything positive. All right, disqualifying the positive. So by disqualifying the positive, you tend to minimize it. You turn even the best things in life into a negative. So a good job is just not good enough. It has to be perfect. And even if you do achieve your goals, you minimize the accomplishments and tend to believe that you could have done, or that anyone could have done it, So not celebrating even the wins, not celebrating the things that you've done well, is an unhealthy thought pattern. Okay, and then another example of that is even when people compliment you, for instance, you just tend to minimize it and you assume, that they're only doing that because they want something, or, they have an ulterior motive, so that's another example to describe that. All right. And then jumping to conclusions. So in the absence of facts, you just tend to just always believe just what what first comes to your mind, that first negative thought. For instance, you conclude that someone dislikes you, even though there's no evidence, right? Or you assume that something will go wrong, maybe fail a test, and these are not founded on any real data or real information. They're just worries that we tend to entertain, or fears, and usually about the unknown, things that we don't even, we're not sure about, and most likely will not come to fruition. So that's another unhealthy thought pattern. So magnification and minimization, similar to kind of disqualifying the positive, but in this case, you're minimizing your positive traits and you exaggerate your shortcomings or your problems. All right, so labeling and mislabeling. Labeling relies on the premise that you are what you do. Rather than describing specific actions and behaviors, you give yourself and others a label. Perfect example, I tell my kids, don't use words like you're a liar, or someone is a liar. Don't label people, say they're this or that, because they lie one time or even two times doesn't make them that. So that's just a simple example I give them. But making a mistake, for instance, could cause a person to label themselves as a loser or a failure in their own mind, right? And labels are abstractions that really serve little purpose other than to frustrate you or lower your self-esteem. That's really their purpose, and that's essentially what they do. And really could become self-fulfilling prophecies. In my opinion, it's almost like you're creating your world by labeling yourself. And then when it's directed at other people, it kind of causes you to, brand them a certain way. And it's kind of difficult to not see them in a different light, especially even when they start to change, right? And it really could be as a result of just it being a problem, in their thinking or their behavior that needs to change. It's not something that they are. So that's another unhealthy thought pattern that I wanted to identify. I think is really important. So the last one here is personalization. And what that looks like is that an event that isn't entirely within your control becomes your fault because you hold yourself personally responsible. A good example is if a child gets a poor grade in school, the mother may tell herself that this shows that she's a bad mother, and then that takes away from her ability to help the child because she's so focused, on personalizing that, making it her fault. And at the other end of that is, that leads to shame, inadequacy, feelings of guilt. And then the other extreme is, blaming even other people and not taking responsibility for what part of that, what role you had to play. So those are all unhealthy thought patterns. And why are we going through this? Because it's important to identify, what our thought patterns are. It's important to identify them, at least recognize them, and even acknowledge them to some extent, because thought patterns lead to mindsets. And mindsets are really a great determinant of our success in life. And it really doesn't matter where, like what part of your life we're talking about, in your career, in achieving your health goals, in parenting, it doesn't matter what it is. Your mindset is a great contributor to your success. Okay. So now we're going to go talk about mindset specifically. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with who Carol Dweck is. She is a professor of psychology at Stanford University and one of the world's leading researchers on motivation and mindsets. Her work mostly focuses on why people succeed and how it is possible to foster success. And she really is considered one of the pioneers in the study of human motivation. Let's see, most of her work really, or that has been highlighted, is really about how mindsets influence motivation and success. She has a book that's really great book. It's called Mindset, the New Psychology of Success. And in that book, she really goes into detail about two main mindsets. And we're going to talk about those briefly in a moment. Okay, let's see here. All right, so she talks about the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. All right, so first we'll talk about fixed mindset. All right, and according to Dweck, Carol Dweck, someone with a fixed mindset really assumes that character, intelligence, and creative ability is all those variables are static givens, meaning that they're literally you're born with those things, right? And that those things can't really change in meaningful ways. Okay, so thoughts when it comes to skills, it's that it's you're born with them, so it's either you have them or you don't. You really can't do anything about it, right? The other when it comes to effort, they don't value effort, or because, what's the point? It's not going to make a difference. That's the thought around, effort. So people who have a fixed mindset typically don't like to put in effort, because they just don't think there's anything that's going to come out of it. All right. When it comes to feedback, oftentimes they reject that because, once again, they get defensive. They take things personal, and they don't really see the value and the purpose, in feedback, because really, what are you giving feedback on? It's on them and their efforts and what they're doing. And so if they're not even giving out effort, they don't even give room for any kind of feedback, right? So, and then when it comes to challenges, they typically try to avoid challenges because that's a highlight on their perfectionism. And so they typically don't like dealing with that, because that's an opportunity literally to showcase not being up to par. And so that's not embraced, that's not encouraged, that's not wanted when it comes to challenges. And then with relationships, these people tend to think that when it comes to other people shining or doing well, that's a reflection on them, a negative reflection on them. They tend to compare themselves with others and feel threatened by the success of other people, thinking that it makes them feel stupid or less than when somebody else does well. So they're less likely to celebrate others, less likely to collaborate with people. And so the picture I'm trying to paint here really is, you see how all of this kind of it's a static mindset. It's not moving. And so essentially keeps a person tends to keep a person in a cycle of defeat. Okay. Because it's like you keep pushing yourself back into a box, a box where a person is stuck and they're not able to, evolve or grow or flow. So this mindset essentially is like, well, I can't learn anything new, has that kind of victim mentality. This is, just the way it is. All right, so the next is growth mindset. And according to Dweck, this is really the tendency to believe that you can grow. This mindset thrives on challenges, okay, embraces challenges. It does not view failure as evidence of lack of intelligence, okay, but really views failure, mistakes, as springboards for growth and stretching of existing abilities. And this growth mindset believes that you are in control of your abilities, that skills are built, right? They are acquired and built. So it's not about being born with certain skills. So yes, you are born with certain skills or talents or gifts, but you can grow them, you can increase them, you can expand them. And then when it comes to effort, it is valued, in fact, and very encouraged. They always want to push forth their best effort and push themselves to even do better than the last time. Okay. And then when it comes to feedback, it definitely is encouraged. They appreciate feedback, they use it, they receive it because they're focusing on getting better each time. And they're focused on, the capacity because they believe that they have the capacity and ability to grow. Okay. And then when it comes to relationships, they celebrate relationships. They're always eager to collaborate with others because they always want to learn something. Okay. And one of the things that I added on here was, Dweck did say, that it is really the mindset of growing. But I believe, yes, you can grow, but then you should grow. That's the additional thing, is like, you should make it a responsibility, to yourself, to grow. because we're all living human beings, right? And we have the capacity, ability to grow and evolve. But I think at some point in our lives, and sometimes it's due to life's challenges, you know, things that we go through, we get to a certain place in our lives or a certain age, and we tend to believe, well, you know, nothing good or nothing new can come out of this or out of me. And then, you know, we get to a place where we tend to feel stuck. And we start to develop these unhealthy patterns and thinking and mindsets, which leads to unhealthy behaviors. And that's where we sometimes get into that place in our minds where we feel like, look, I can't make any changes in my health. I can't make any changes when it comes to my diet because, you know, this is just me. I'm set in my ways, you know, and that really isn't the ideal, right? The growth mindset is based on the belief that, yes, you do have those basic qualities and they're things that are unique to you as a person, but you can cultivate additional skills and habits through your efforts, right? That can increase you and cause you to grow and cause you to expand, right? And that's really what the premise of this whole mindset theory is about, and why the growth mindset is encouraged. All right, so here, this is just a kind of quick recap of what it's all about. Fixed mindset, the main belief is you have an inability to learn, so what's the point? I'm not even gonna bother. And so that person focuses more on reproducing what you know, right? And then growth mindset is the ability, believes in the ability to learn and grow, and believes the main focus rather is improving on what is known by learning. So I know what I know, but I'm going to add on to that. I'm going to, collaborate with people. I'm going to take in the feedback because my focus is on improving, getting better. Okay. All right. So let's see here what I wanted to highlight. Okay, I think that makes sense. And I hope that's pretty clear to everyone. So how do we develop this growth mindset? What are those practical things that we can do, to ensure that we are, renewing our minds and we're growing and we're achieving our goals? Okay, first thing, like I have there, is renew your mind. So remember, just as I mentioned a few minutes ago, you were created to evolve and grow. And really, there's no expiration date on that process. So I don't care if you're 60 years old or you're 70 or whatever. There's no time frame. There's no cap that says, oh, because you're a certain age, you can't grow, you can't learn, you can't get better, at things that you already know how to do. And so there really is no preset time to stop growing. And as long as you're breathing, you have a responsibility to yourself to continue to learn and grow. One other thing you could do is follow the research on brain plasticity. I don't know how familiar you guys are with that, but you'll discover, and research has discovered, that the brain is not fixed. And so your mind should not be fixed either. There's so much, mind-blowing research in that area. So feel free to, look into that. Just do a Google search, brain plasticity, and learn how your brain just is wired to grow, and so your thoughts shouldn't be static either. Okay. Acknowledge and embrace imperfections, kind of what we talked about earlier, right? When we know something, when we know our weaknesses, when we know where we struggle and we identify them, we acknowledge them, then the chances of kind of growing past that, overcoming some of them, the chances are higher. But if we don't, evaluate, if we don't go into times of thinking and just reviewing, then we're not aware. So this really is just around being self-aware. So practice self-awareness, acknowledge and embrace your imperfections, and then view challenges as opportunities, okay? See them as, opportunities to grow, to make a change. Don't view them as reflections on, yourself as a failure or, someone who makes mistakes or things like that. We all do. That's a natural thing. But being able to recognize that what it is an opportunity to learn, is very important to develop your growth mindset. All right. And then next one is try different learning strategies. Okay. There's so many different advancements right now, different ideas as far as learning, so do the research, go talk to people. How are they learning how to do new things? There's so many resources out there, to do that. So I encourage you to do that as well. And then change your vocabulary. So instead of using words like I'm failing or I'm a failure at this, use words like I'm learning how to do this. I'm working on this, and then someone asks you a question about, oh, do you know how to do something, or have you achieved this goal? You say not yet. Feel comfortable with using the words not yet, or instead of saying, oh no, I don't know how to do that, my sister knows how to do that, I'm just not cut out for that. And yes, I know there's some things that may seem more difficult for you than not, but try to change your vocabulary around that and say not yet. I'm working on that, or I do plan to work on that. But not yet is a good phrase to use. Okay. And then value the process over the results, the end result. Okay. Enjoy the process of learning. Don't be so conscious about what what that outcome or that goal is. Okay. Realize that the process really is where the value is, right? So, pay attention to what's going on in your transition from not knowing how to do something to actually being able to do it, from not having your goals achieved to actually having them achieved. So the next thing is to be realistic about time and effort. So as you're going through the process, recognize that it takes time to learn. Okay, you should not expect to master everything under the sun in one setting. Okay, it won't all just come in one day. So be patient with yourself, be patient with the process, and be realistic about the time and even the effort that is required to get you from point A to point B. Okay, and then you want to cultivate grit, because yes, challenges will come your way. And it's not always going to be easy, but you cultivate grit, and it just means that you're determined to achieve your goals. And let yourself be your measure of success. Am I better than I was yesterday? Perfect example. So I walked the block, last week. So now this week, I'm going to push myself and do better than that. Or I was able to track, my meals this week, maybe on 2 days. Now next week, I'm going to do it, just 3 days. So I don't want us to have that mindset where we're overwhelmed about the big picture. But it's really about the changes we can make each day to be better than we were the day before, right? And pushing ourselves to do more each day. So make a new goal for every goal that you accomplished, okay? For every goal that you accomplish, keep pushing yourself, doing more. You can do more. Your brain wants to do that. It wants to expand. It wants to grow. It wants to do, more than it did yesterday, and it gives you even a sense of accomplishment as well. All right. And then cultivate a sense of purpose. And then I think it's always important to tie our purpose to living a legacy and leaving a legacy, right? I feel like for me, that's one of my big motivations doing anything in life is, I want to live a legacy, but I also want to leave a legacy for my children, and not just my children, but just really anyone in my sphere of influence, for them to see, well, this was done. She was able to accomplish this, and she was able to reach her goals. So I can do that, whatever my goals are. You kind of open the door for other people to be able to do the same in their lives, and it's really not about saying, the accolades, and it's not about the thing. It really is about the process, and it's about the things that you learn in the process and the character that's built and all of that. And you're able to pass that on to your children. And that's why I think it's important to tie whatever your purpose is or your goal is to living and leaving a legacy. All right. And finally, taking ownership of your attitude. What that essentially means is now you want to have a growth mindset, right? Once you develop that, once you start working towards that, you own it. Acknowledge yourself as someone who possesses a growth mentality, and be proud to let it guide you through every aspect of your life. Use it, exercise it, teach it to somebody else, teach it to your grandkids, teach it to your children, teach it to anyone who cares to listen to you, pass it on. But own it, you know, as this is me, this is who I am, someone who has a growth mindset and who's always, you know, wanting to learn and grow.